Mm, 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 mm. I'm live. Welcome, friends, enemies, strangers, kind mothers, those in the bardo, demons, angels, all kinds of deities, devils. Welcome to Wake Up and Think Clearly. I'm sort of awake, and it's a Wednesday. Hmm. What day is it? August 6th, maybe? Yeah, it's August 6th. Hmm. And it's 2025, and we have still have President Trump. And who else do we have? Woo! And this morning, I was listening to Mehdi. I don't know his last name. Was it Mehdi Hassan? What's his name? I could pull it up on my other phone because I was watching. Well, anyway, I could pull it up a little bit later, but I'd like to cover what's happening this week. So, this week, the Trump administration effectively announced it wants to make climate denial official U.S. policy. Okay. Another university capitulated to Donald Trump. And we learned conspiracy theorist and Islamophobe Laura Loomer is apparently still Trump's loyalty enforcer. At the same time, Trump is still trying to distract from calls to release the Jeffrey Epstein pedophiles. That's they just came to me, pedophiles. He fired the Bureau of Labor Statistics because he was mad about the weak WEAK jobs report and the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian, the Smithsonian Institute pretended Donald Trump wasn't impeached in 2019 and 2021. Pretended. So, what could that be? Anyway, meanwhile, 17 Democratic senators and all of the Republican senators voted to carry on sending weapons to Israel, even as the Israeli military continues to gun down Palestinians waiting for aid. It's been 24 hours after the vote. Another Palestinian American was killed in an Israeli settler attack. Hmm. Okay. Hmm. Uh, Okay, that's the weekend update. No. Okay, here I am. And hello. Hmm. Okay. Well, so there's this journalist that maybe he used to be on either CNN or MSNBC or something like that. I guess he got terminated. Maybe I don't know the details of his, but maybe he's got a podcast now or something. Like Tucker Carlson kind of has to become independent and he can make a living that way, and that's good for him because he doesn't have to oblige by the rules of mainstream media or the media that's controlled by a few, the elite. But he doesn't have to follow the rules. and and he he prepared for the debate against some 20 young uh, far right uh, local hmm, influencers. Mhm. They sat in a circle and then I don't know how many minutes they get. I don't know the rules exactly, but it starts off one at a time. They take turns and they debate uh, the person in the center. who's the who's on the I don't know if he's on the far left or just in the what makes sense to him. Uh, so he claims to be a yes yes he is a naturalized U.S. citizen. Came by way of England. Perhaps his parents came to England from India. Uh, his name suggests to me that he might be Muslim and not Hindu. I'm not sure. I'll have to find out more about him. Hmm. See, how can I find out more about him? Well, I was listening to him hmm, on yes, his name is Mehdi Mehdi. That's Mehdi Mehdi Hassan. Mhm. So Jubilee jury court member. Hmm. Mhm. Oh, hmm. The dog poops. No, it's gonna poop again. Mhm. Morning. Mhm. Let's see. Okay. Oh. Mm. Mm. No, Naya, no. No, 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 no. No, no, Naya, no, 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 Naya, no, no, no. Why are you wagging your tail? You're wagging tail. No, no, mm, mm, no, no. Mm, 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 mm. Oh no, man. Mm. Ah, boy. Mm, 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 mm. Man, man. Well, you should be dead. Okay, anyway, let's get back. Let's focus on what we're supposed to be doing. Okay, I'm walking the dog, but I also wanted to take a look at my responses or the responses I got. Okay, so I'm going to share. So I'm going to share something that I haven't seen before. Let's see. Screen. Okay, entire screen. So now I'm going to flip over to my. Um, let's see. Maybe my emails. Building. See what my response. Yeah, where is 4 days ago? This Sunday. This Sunday. Oh shit. Another one? Hmm. Oh, 4 days ago would be 6.42 this Sunday. So Hmm. Something else. Oh, I don't see Nancy's building. She hasn't. See, I don't see any recent one. There's that one. She hasn't. She hasn't sent the. Maybe she's busy. So, but I. But this one's due August 17th, so I can procrastinate a little bit. It's August 6th right now, 17, 6. Got 11 days, but maybe I could read it over. Verse 19, the bottom, the top, the end, that is real. This is. No, that is. In this way, people quarrel. The one primal reality is all that is. All this inertial matter is transient, except as a form of water. Could a wave ever arise? Hmm. Let's see. Uh, the alpha factor. Ati is the alpha factor. Muti, the omega factor. Jada. Jada, inertial matter, basis for differentiation. Matter, primal substance from which all phenomenal things have sprung. The animating principle. Matter, well, could be related to matter and mother. Detail look at the verse. In all fields of human thought, endeavor, and interaction, there are divisions, even in those dedicated to the manifestation of truth, harmony, peace. The tendency to quarrel, to take sides, to see differently, to divide seems intrinsic not only in our nature but in all of nature, where everything we observe is differentiated from everything else. In fact, if it were not differentiated, we could not observe it. But here Narayana Guru reminds us that there is more to reality than what meets the eye or ear or mouth, nose and skin. What does meet our senses, the individual aspects of the world, is ever changing, transient. If we can see it, touch it, hear it, it can change and can disappear, but its essence continues. This verse contains one of the simplest and clearest, most compelling images that explain Now, everything can be differentiated in one, transient and unchanging at the same time. Guru says that we should discipline ourselves to turn from the form to the essence every day, all the time. Watch yourself to become more aware of what fosters your capacity to turn from the form to the essence, to become more sensitive to the numinous aspect of life, numinous, and endeavor to bring more of whatever that is into your days. And try adding this as you move through your encounters of the day, your thoughts of the day. Bring the analogy of waves and oceans in the water. They both are, in essence, again and again to mind. And apply that understanding to whatever is happening or whatever you are thinking or feeling. Hmm. Review verses 1 through 19. And note Narayana Guru's 19 different ways of referring to the numinous essence. Try an eating meditation in silence if possible. Place your food in front of you and sit quietly for a moment before you begin eating. Take a moment to contemplate the source of the food and feel your gratitude for all that went into its creation and transportation to be placed there. Then look carefully at it. Be aware of your body and your feelings of hunger when you feel present and connected with the bounty before you begin to eat slowly. Be aware of lifting the food to your mouth, of chewing, tasting, swallowing. Mm. Notice if you feel hurried. Take your time. Taste each bite carefully with awareness of the flavors, the textures, the now, pause for a moment between bites. Continue eating with awareness until you finish your meal. Notice when you start to feel full. Listen to the messages of whole body and be guided by those messages rather than by habit of thought or practice. Try to do this at least now and then to heighten your awareness of the interconnectedness of the web of life. Nourishment, growth, dissolution, and numinous factor pervading all. Share your experiences and insights. So that's verse 19. I have to meditate on eating food, I guess, and hunger, hungry. Try eating. Try an eating meditation in silence, if possible. Place your food in front of you. Eating meditation. So, okay. Eating meditation. Oh, it's a disaster. What mm, 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 mm. No, let's see. Let's go to Scott. Email, uh, emails with Scott Tate's Tatesworth. Verse. So, let's see this one. Lesson 18, due this Saturday. Oh, in a few days. 18. Okay, so I have to study lesson 18. Uh-huh. Which PDF should I open it with? Mm. Oh, here's my favorite one. I could try others. Oh, wait a minute. This is this is not hmm, I think I should have opened it with Word. It's not really a PDF, it's a Word document. Did it open in my PDF? Hmm. Okay. Oh, so this is the first 9 verses, looks like. And I have looked at it. That's good. See, Krishna said, without depending on the results of action, he who does necessary action is a renouncer and also a contemplative, not he who has merely given up the sacrificial fire or merely abstained from ritualist or other action. Yeah. Let's see. That which people call renunciation know that to be yoga, or to be in union with God, O Arjuna, one who has not given up his willful desires for particularized ends never indeed becomes a yogi. Mhm. So, in order to have union with God, one would have to give up all his desires for particularized ends. Mhm. Mm. Oh, verse 3. The yoga of a man of self control who is still an aspirant is said to have action as its motive principle. For the same person, when he has ascended to the unitive state, tranquility is said to be its motive principle. Hmm. Hmm. So, an aspirant level yogi, it's saying that for an aspirant aspiring to attain yogahood or Buddhahood, uh, one starts off with self control. So, its motive principle is action, karma, perhaps. For the same person, when he has ascended to the unitive state, tranquility is said to be its motive principle. Tranquility. Hmm. Okay. What is tranquility? Yeah. A state where hmm, hmm, a state where one is not bothered by extremes, perhaps. It not necessarily does it mean that one stays in the middle. Mm. Yeah. Mhm. So, okay, so ya, ya podemos ir, ¿no? Mm. Y esto lo pongo aquí. Voy a poner esto allí. Voy a poner esto allí. Esto aquí, miren. Miren. Y voy a poner esto. Voy a poner esto aquí. Mire aquí. Mire, voy a poner esto aquí. Mm. Ya. Okay, so I was talking to my dog. Oh, well, it's not my dog. To the dog that I'm taking care of for today. Walking him. Anyway, where's where was I? Okay, go in. So, 4, verse 4, or Shloka 4 of chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita. When, however, one finds attachment neither in the objects of the senses nor in actions, such a man who has renounced all willful desires for particularized ends is said to be one who has ascended to yoga. Mm, I have to read it again. It flew over me. When, however, one finds attachment neither in the objects of senses nor in action, such a man has renounced all willful desires for particularized ends is said to be the one who has ascended to yoga. Okay, so looking back at the previous statement, perhaps statement 2. That which people call renunciation, know that to be yoga. So renunciation is yoga. And what is that? That's where one would give up willful desires for particularized ends. And therefore, one who has not given up his willful desires for particularized ends never indeed becomes a yogi. So that sort of suggests, perhaps even defines what uh, what Krishna means by renunciation. But then, yeah, it goes from statement 2 to statement 4. It sort of comes to the uh, uh, obvious conclusion that when, however, one finds attachment neither in the objects of the senses nor in actions, so then one, it's an interesting phrase, when, however, one finds attachment neither in the objects of sensation nor in action. So that means that could suggest that one can find attachment in some other things. So in other words, there is an allowance, or it is allowed for one to be attached to certain things. It is that the attachment should not fall on objects of the senses, and it should not fall on actions. So what should attachment fall on? In other words, what? I don't know if I should say it fall on. In other words, what may one be attached to? So one may not be attached to sense objects of desire, objects of the senses, right? Nor in actions. So when one attachment is to objects of the senses, that is the desire, right? And when one has attachment to action, you could say that there's a desire to act and a compelling urge to act. A karma. So when one has no such attachments, such a man who has renounced all willful desires for particularized ends. In other words, when a man or a woman or a child, what about a dog, finds finds that they have renounced all willful desires for particularized ends, then that being is said to be one who has ascended to yoga. Okay, now let me comment on this. It seems to me that this business of attachment and of renunciation, so it suggests that renunciation is the abandonment of certain attachments. And those certain attachments are objects of what? Of the senses. What are objects of the senses? So if one is if one thinks of oneself as basic, in essence, as a robot, say an I robot, a Roomba, a Zumba, no, yeah, a robot vacuum cleaner, whatever name brand you want. It has sensors that indicate that are designed to sense when it runs into something. So, in other words, it it doesn't have eye sense. It's a blind robot. How come they don't have vacuum cleaners that have eye sense, that have a camera that would help it see up ahead that, oh, there's something there, so I can plan ahead to not bump into it? Maybe. Maybe it's too expensive. Anyway, for now, those devices, those devices have just a sensor of touch, and where they bump into things, they sense it, and change the gears to go maybe reverse a little bit and turn to one way or the other. Anyway, that would be a good question to ask Gemini AI or hmm, Copilot AI assistant. How does a Roomba, an iRobot, or whatever brand we have we've had several. Yeah, Roomba by what's morning? What's the name of it? Maybe iRobot makes the Roomba. I don't know. Anyway, we've had one by Sharp, and now we have one by somebody else. It's an unknown brand, and I haven't figured out how to get it to. Well, I have an app that goes with it, but the one before I could more easily indicate what rooms to go to. But this one is it's not very good at that, I don't think. Anyway, so for such a simple device, the object of the senses is sensing that it's run into something. So it immediately reacts by changing gears and maybe going reverse a little bit and then turning to the right or something like that and going forward. So the object of the senses, it's uh, it's very simple. You There's really no desire involved, is there? Hmm. And there's no attachment involved. And like the Roomba is not attached to keep running into the same object. So maybe renunciation has to do with our ability to change direction after running into the same object a few times. We should figure out that it's, it's not benefiting us. So we should maybe go back and turn a little our wheels a little bit and go in another direction and see what happens next. Yeah. Perhaps our suffering is caused by an attachment towards the same object. So we keep running into the same object. And that's a malfunction that we need to correct. So maybe it's as simple as that. That's what we try to do in whatever philosophy we engage in or we commit to navigate through this whatever this is. Is it a reality or is it something's there? So, but now that could be the essence of this business of renunciation. Maybe it's opposite. It's an attachment. So we have an attachment towards an object of the senses. Maybe we keep running into it because we're attached to it to its pleasure, like say chocolate, and then we keep eating chocolate, and then we get sick of chocolate, and maybe we finally figure out maybe I should stop pursuing this object of the senses. And maybe after eating so many, it starts to not be as pleasurable. Maybe I don't know how many chocolates do you have to eat before it starts tasting disgusting or boring. Maybe you go through several phases. Maybe after a while it's boring. After a while, you start it starts tasting a little bit bitter or something. I don't know. And it starts annoying your stomach. Maybe it's the sugar that they add to the chocolate starts bothering you. Maybe your guilt starts coming in. Hmm, things like that. Uh, hmm. It is said, I don't know who said it, but I got a teaching in one of my Buddhism classes that comes from the New Kadampa tradition. So maybe it comes from Geshe Kelsang Gyatso, maybe one of his books. But it was said in one of my classes following his books that like you can get a hammer and maybe strike your finger, and you can do it repetitively, and each time you strike your finger with a hammer, it should be let's say that you strike it with the same force every time, and you're a masochist, or maybe you're paid $10,000 each time you strike your finger, and you have to do it yourself willfully for legal reasons. Maybe they put you on YouTube, get lots of hits that way to make it go viral, to kind of demonstrate something about pain, that yeah, pain, if you use a hammer on your finger repeatedly, the pain will not lessen. It will just keep increasing, supposedly. We'd have to try it out and see if that's true. Maybe after a while, the nerves in the finger deaden, and so you can continue hitting your finger and make more money that way. Deaden the pain of the finger, so you could keep banging on your finger and make lots of money that way. Maybe 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. You make 100,000. Maybe they'll stop and say, "Man, you've destroyed your finger. Let's stop." No, I want to continue. I want to make more money. Anyway, that's one scenario. And the other scenario, let's say that yeah, you get $10 for each um, chocolate bar that you eat. How many chocolate bars will you eat before you say, "No, I can't have any more. I don't care about the money." Well, I didn't make it 10,000 because maybe that would be too easy. But let's say a chocolate bar. Let's say you keep eating chocolate bars to make money. When will you stop? Let's see. Maybe you eat 50 chocolate bars. 50 times 10, $500. That might be possible. But what would be going on in your body? That's an interesting. What would be going on? your body. Karen. All right. And you?
Whew. Nice rain last night.
Wow, you walk every morning?
Not every morning. I either walk or go to the bar.
Wow.
So I decided I did that this morning because it's
Oh, it is. Humid but cooler.
yeah, it's a little cooler. Here's have a good day.
You too. Hmm. So, wow. Yeah, that's an interesting thought experiment. Those two scenarios. How many chocolate bars would you intake before you say, no, I can't stand it anymore? Hmm. How many times would you have to bang your finger with a hammer before it doesn't feel any more pain so you could continue making more money? Would you submit to that? How many times would it take? 20? And each time you're screaming, oh my goodness, it might be worth it. But maybe in the case of a chocolate bar, well, it depends how big it is. Maybe you could eat a whole bunch. I don't know if that's a good thought experiment. But basically, what was taught in the Kadampa Buddhist class one time, that I may have heard it a few times before, that um, if you eat a chocolate, something that's pleasurable, after a while, you'll end up being disgusted by it. Who knows how many bars are say it's a Snickers cup. How many cups of Snickers would it take until you can't take anymore? But the point is that eventually you will stop because the pleasure decreases as you go along. As you every unit of that pleasure giving object that you intake, the pleasure compared to the first time you took it will decrease, right? That may also that may also I don't know. I assume it might also happen with sex. Sex. I don't know. I've never been married, so I don't know how many times it would take to have sex with the wife, like every night or whenever, before one would say, "No, I'm too tired. I can't take it anymore." Maybe the woman would. It depends on how good a lover the man is, but maybe the woman would end up saying first that, "No, I've had enough. I don't want, not tonight, dear. I have a headache." After after 10 nights, maybe the woman would be the first to say, "No, thanks." I'm just taking a random number. It could vary couple to couple, but eventually, yes, maybe both of them at the same time would decide, yeah, let's take a break for a few nights. And maybe after a while of a marriage of 50 years, the sex is down to once a month, maybe, and they're happy that way, or less. Or maybe one of them it stops functioning, especially the man, and so then maybe the woman is unsatisfied and has to look outside the marriage. Anyway, the point is that the object of the senses, if the sense, if it's an attachment to that object of the senses, but of any one or all of them, at the same time, the pleasure derived from the attachment to such object of the senses, um, the the unit of interacting with that object, we call it an occurrence with that object. It would the amount of pleasure, you could say, would would gradually decrease. Maybe it's a slope, gradually sloping down. If you had the x-axis, let's say the horizontal axis is units of uh, occurrence of that object, and the y-axis could be the amount of pleasure from received from the object. You could graph it and say that it slopes gradually to zero over time, over occurrences. Mhm. Yeah, the occurrences would have some time between them. Let's say once a day time, or once a minute time, whatever it is. The the amount of pleasure would start to decrease until there's no more pleasure in it, I would think. So that would mean that the attachment to that object would decrease. Uh, and so what happens to the renunciation? So we could say that the attachment to that object is proportional to the pleasure derived from that object. So that over many occurrences, the attachment, the the pleasure goes down, and the attachment also goes down. And but then, what about renunciation? Then renunciation goes up. So you could say that renunciation is inversely proportional to the attachment and the pleasure that one receives from that object. Mhm. I would think. What do you think? Anyway, the point is that that's for an object that produces pleasure. But for an object that produces pain, it is possible that the amount of pain does not increase with every occurrence. It just, and maybe it produces all kinds of things in the mind, like what is it? Not, pain on top of pain. What is it? The pain of pain, the pain of knowing that you're having pain. That would cause. Hmm. What would that cause? Hmm. Alarm, because you know that your finger, like say you're hammering on your finger repeatedly, say once every 5 seconds, you hit your finger with a hammer, and you go, wow, the first time would be a huge ow. The second time would still be just as painful. So I suspect that the pain does not decrease compared to the pleasure one gets with chocolate or with sex. at every incident of taking or of participating in the in the sexual act. The pain, the pleasure might decrease over not just time but incidences or occasions. But with the hammer hitting a finger, I would think that the pain does not decrease at every time, and it might even increase. Hmm. I don't know, but we'd have to do some experiments to see if that's true, if it's valid for all objects of the senses, where some objects produce pleasures and some objects produce pains. Now there's something in between. Could be objects that produce neither pleasure nor pain, but produce something neutral, maybe something tranquil, something peaceful. Is an object that produces something peaceful, would that produce boredom after a while? That's interesting. So I've heard the object that produces a peaceful, tranquil effect on the system, it might be good because beforehand there was anxiety, and so by in interacting with this object, it produces some kind of tranquility to up to a point. But then after a while of applying it, one gets bored, one gets tired of it. So eventually, the tranquility decreases, and maybe there's anxiety. Where the monkey mind comes in and says, "No, I got to do something. I got to worry about something." So it's think about that. But I want to read a few more verses. That was verse 2 and 4, where 2 was kind of the negative and 4 is the positive. And also 4 uh, seems to include the word attachment and renouncement. By the self must be upheld. The self should not be let down. The self indeed is its own dear relative. The self indeed is the enemy of the self. It's interesting, but I I kind of disagree with hmm, I kind of disagree with the way the self is presented here. I I like to I wonder if I could for a moment uh, bring up the possibility that even though the Sanskrit might contain the word self as atma, atmo, or atman, because Sanskrit does not uh, provide uh, indications of, of capitalization versus non-capitalization, in that we like to distinguish the uncapitalized self with the capitalized self. I I when I first read this, I said, okay, so the self is capitalized here, but I tend to equate the self with the capital S as It's the absolute self in us all, and and I like to think of it as perfected, and because it is permanent, it should not be changing. So the self in us is that which doesn't change. And but here the self is treated more as the I self, the myself, the egoic mind, the egoic self. So I I wonder if it would make or wouldn't it make better sense for me that the self in this verse be indicated with a lowercase s, because when I read it, I could as just as easily replace the self with uh, with s, capital S, with lowercase f. The self, just replace the word self in this verse, maybe in the next one too. Replace it with the word mind and see what you get. Okay, see. So I'm going to read it. By the mind must be upheld. The mind should not be let down. The mind indeed is its own dear relative. The mind indeed is the enemy of the mind. Hmm. The mind, by the mind must be upheld. The mind should not be let down. The mind indeed is its own dear relative. The mind indeed is the enemy of the mind. Now, the the problem is that we also have a problem with the word mind. Uh, we we can analyze the mind and talk about the monkey mind and the deluded mind, and on the other hand, we could talk about the mind, the nature of the mind as clear sky, and that it's pure. The mind is like water, and when we have a diluted mind, that means that the water is full of dirt and it's been shaken up. So we have a diluted mind in that way. So when we calm the mind through meditation, we're allowing the particles to fall to the bottom, and then we have a pure mind. And so then after the meditation, we can go on and with the mind that is clear and we can see where we're going or act correctly afterwards. Or just think clearly. Yes, think rationally, think logically, think like a stoic, all those wonderful things. Or like a scientist maybe, and maybe and maybe analyze or look at our emotions, and then sort of take 10 seconds and let the emotions mm, kind of dissolve or on their own. Okay, so that indeed the mind could be helpful to itself, or it could be the enemy, its own enemy. That was the verse 5, because it says, if I replace self with mind, it would say, by the self, no, by the mind must be upheld. In other words, we got to use our own mind to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and, you know, go back to work. The mind should not be let down. In other words, by the mind must be upheld, and the mind should not be let down. The mind indeed is its own dear relative. The mind indeed is the enemy of the mind. So it's as if we gotta use our mind to take care of our mind somehow. How do we do that? Anyway, they say there's a part of the brain that supposedly does that, the prefrontal cortex. The the mind is dear to one possessed of mind. The mind is dear to one possessed of mind. Well, I'm reading verse 6. I'm replacing I'm replacing mind, no, self with mind. The mind is dear to one possessed of mind, by whom even the mind by mind has been won. For one not possessed of mind, oops, the mind would be in conflict with the very mind, as if an enemy. To one of this is a verse 7. To one of conquered mind who rests in peace, the supreme is in a state of neutral balance in heat cold, happiness, suffering, honor, grace. That yogi whose mind is satisfied by synthetic wisdom and analytic knowledge, established in unchanging immobility, who has gained full control over sense attachments, is said to be unified. One to whom a lump of earth, a stone, and gold are the same. Between dear well wishers, friends, enemies, those indifferent. Mhm. Okay, so I read through all the 9 verses of chapter 6. But let's summarize the chapter. Uh, I wonder if this summary covers the whole chapter or the first 9 verses. But I guess Scott Tatesworth is summarizing here. He's saying Krishna reiterates that not being dependent on the results of action is proper renunciation. Not being dependent on the results of action. Not being dependent on the results of action. Can that be done? Can one not depend on the results of action. Could that be done? Well, uh, when we get hungry, we eat. So we are depending on the results of action. The action is eating. The results of the action would be to satiate the hunger. So, how can we live not being dependent on the results? Like, I'm going to go ahead and eat, but I'm not going to be dependent on the results. I'm not, I'm going to live as if eating will not eliminate my hunger. I'm going to try real hard not to believe in it, not to depend on it. And yet, I must depend on it. Otherwise, if I don't do that, then I would go hungry and would get weak and so on. So, we do depend on it. We carry out those actions because we depend upon the result that by eating, the hunger will cease and the body will continue to function adequately. So there's a problem. How can we carry out proper renunciation? Oh, it says Krishna reiterates that not being dependent on the results of action is proper renunciation, not giving up doing things, which is the popular misconception. So you don't give up doing things, but you don't depend on the results. So, uh, so let's say you have a job to do and it requires lots of energy of the body. So you figure out that before starting the work, one is hungry, so one figures out maybe if I eat before I work, then I'll have the energy to do the task better. Mhm. But how does one carry out eating? Why would one want to eat in the first place? One is thinking that one has the belief that by eating, one will have the energy to do the work. Hmm. But how does one have proper renunciation? How does one stop being dependent on eating to give one the energy? Or maybe one doesn't really believe that eating will help one work better. One just feels hungry and maybe it's time to eat. don't know. Anyway, as long as you aim for particular ends, you can never be a yogi. Know that you are your own best friend. Support yourself, take care of yourself. Do not become your own enemy, as so many do. Then you will be steady and fair in all your dealings with the world. Krishna gives Arjuna simple instructions for meditation to attune with the absolute. You must sit quiet with and focus without exaggeration, and the very stillness of it is unity with the absolute. When the mind wanders, bring it back to the focal point. He gives a definitive definition of yoga: disaffiliation with the context of suffering. Disaffiliation from the context of suffering. Disaffiliation from the context of suffering. Duality is the context of suffering, and yogic unity is its cure. In it, you easily enjoy happiness that is ultimate. In this state, all beings and all events are seen to be equally divine. Let's see if I can copy this all the way down to here. Copy. Then I go. Hmm. Of the fifth. Yep. Hmm. I gotta find a picture. Hmm. Yeah. It's, hey, this one. Let's see. Hmm. Damn. Okay. So that's good enough for me. I'm gonna close this. I can't do any better than this. I still got lots to read. I read the last part of this article, but there's also, and I read the beginning two paragraphs of this article. I assume it's by Scott Tatesworth. Hmm. How come this is the same as this? I don't know why. Will get repeated somehow. Hmm. So there's chapter 6, Unitive Contemplation. Gotta read all this too. Damn. I like to read it. I like to read all this. Downloading progress. Download completed. Despite forming the background of much of the practice of yoga, meditation as such is little mentioned in the Gita, mainly in the title here and in 3 verses. In chapter 12, verse 12, chapter 13, verse 24, chapter 18, verse 52. It makes a negative appearance in chapter 2, verse 62. It is of passing interest that the word Zen is descended from the Sanskrit word for meditation, dhyanam, and the intense burst of focus characteristic of that discipline is implied in the original as well. As Nataraja Guru puts it, yoga is a streak of lightning inside you. Meditation itself means different things to different people. The subject can perhaps be generalized as whatever mental activity is directed toward ideal or vertical aspects of life, as opposed to that directed toward horizontal needs and transactions. As such, it is a subtle form of action and is treated that way in the Gita. Contemplation is an essential part of meditation, and its outline is sketched in the middle of this chapter. Buddha Nitya clearly delineates meditation and contemplation on page 368 of his commentary on Narayana Guru's Darsanamala. Oh, I have that book. In our own times, meditation and contemplation are used as synonyms. Both the terms have lost their precise connotation and have become vague in meaning. So it has become necessary to revalue and restate the terms meditation and contemplation. Sequentially, meditation comes as a prelude to contemplation, the way to know something. As Henry Bergson puts it, it is not by going around it, but by first entering into it and then being it. Meditation is an active process of applying one's mind to make a total imploration of the depth of whatever is to be known. The state of actually being it is what is achieved by contemplation. It is a passive but steady state. The state of actually being it is what is achieved by contemplation. It is a passive but steady state. Mm. Mm. Damn, I can't get it to come down. Mm. Achieved by contemplation. I can go in here and another post. Mm. Where is the link? Mm-hmm. It is a passive but steady state. It is a passive but steady. Mm. Mm. Commentary on Narayana Gurus. Okay. Yeah. Hmm. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to close up the shop. I got plenty of study to do. Hmm. What should I? How should I end this? Okay. Like, mm, turn on the video, maybe. Hmm. Hmm. I guess I could go home now and take a shower. Hmm. Dog did his business. Uh, and I didn't mind meditating on meditation and contemplation. Mm. Mm. Okay, so I'm gonna say goodbye. I know you'll miss me. Okay, thanks for watching, and I guess I should dedicate the meager merits I accumulated to all my kind mothers.